Whatever makes you happy, Joe.
But no, I'm joined today by two great friends, episode 74, and we're here to talk about mainly the Joker movie because a lot of people are talking about it. And I want to talk about Joaquin Phoenix first. All right, so you showed me the video of Joaquin Phoenix on the Kimmel show, and it was like the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen. Like it was so. I feel like he does that with a lot of guests though, because I saw a compilation of him doing similar stuff to other guests where he's making like these weird, he's trying to be funny. That's what it is. Like he's trying to be funny. I don't know what to make of it. But here's what I was thinking on the way over here. Because, and this obviously, if you haven't seen the Joker movie, don't even click on this or watch this. Because the whole movie circulates around an awkward late night performance like event, do you think that they try to make it awkward to like market the movie a little bit? Because that would be in line with that scene, or is that too coincidental?
No, it's coincidental because Joaquin Phoenix has a history of awkward moments. He's also like a lot more sheltered when it comes to, I guess, being a celebrity. You know, like one of the things since he's been taking his talk show cycle, he's been doing his talk show cycle because of the movie. That's one thing that's brought up quite often is the fact that he's not well known to a lot of people, and he's not well known even like as an actor to a lot of people, just from this role and that role. So it's that part of it was definitely true to him as a person, not necessarily marketed a certain way. And Jimmy Kimmel doing that is true to Jimmy Kimmel. I think it's just a bit ironic that it also follows suit in some capacity to the movie.
Yeah, because it's almost like exactly like the scene, like even the framing, you know, like, it felt so weird. It felt intentional. And here's my second question I have for you is, do you think that his long game was to get him to apologize to that set person? So what happens on the Kimmel show video, Ant, did you watch it?
No.
All right, so what happens is Jimmy Kimmel like playfully goes to Joaquin Phoenix like, we're going to play some outtakes and bloopers from the movie, and we're just going to see how you react to it. And it's very impromptu. And so when it goes to Joaquin, like he looks visibly uncomfortable. Like he's like, okay, like what are they about to show? He has no idea. It cuts to a clip of him. Remember the scene where he just killed the guy, and so like he's kind of like half makeup? Mm-hmm. It cuts to a shot of him in that room, and he's freaking out on some guy on set. Like, he's saying something about, like, I can't believe he's late or something like that, blah, blah, blah.
He's whispering in his ear as he's trying to act the scene out.
Right,
That's
exactly.
what somebody was doing.
Right, and he starts freaking out because somebody was whispering in his ear. He can't get into character. And so, literally, the clip is him kind of storming out of shot because he's so angry. And it just fades back to him. There was no point in that clip that you were supposed to laugh. Like a classic blooper is like he flubbed his line or something like that. It was him getting mad at another production guy. And so the audience in the Kimmel show doesn't laugh. It dissolves back to him. Like Joaquin Phoenix just kind of like looking like befuddled at what just happened. Yeah. And he's like, so what do you think of that? And Joaquin Phoenix goes, I didn't know this was going to be shown. I just want to say that, you know, sometimes movies get intense and I was trying to get into a certain character. Sorry you guys had to see that. It was so awkward. Yeah. But the way that Kimmel leaned into it is he was like, I think you should apologize to Bob, or whatever his name was, the set guy. Do you think that was his long game? Like somebody put him up to it, like, hey, can you get him to like apologize?
No. I see. So from what I've seen, the more I see of Jimmy Kimmel, and I like his skits, and I've used his skits in class.
Yeah, I like his are you talking about like his on the street segments where he's like, how many continents are there and stuff like that?
and
Jay
him
did that too. Yeah,
him like James Corden and Jimmy Fallon. They do a good job of bringing in this like new skit side to their shows. What I don't like about Jimmy Kimmel and why the more that I see of him, the more that I dislike him, is because he's extremely hypocritical in the type of person that he is, and that's shown.
What do you mean by that? Because isn't he kind of playing like a character? Like
no, so since he's kind of found himself some fame, he's been caught multiple times going back. So if you've watched him over the course of the last 3 years, he's been extremely critical of the actions of other people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he would say stuff about anybody, critical of celebrities' lives and critical of politicians and critical of systems in America, which is okay to be critical of it. But then he goes ahead and he is that same villain in a sense that Robert De Niro is playing
Right.
And it's a villain that's been on talk shows and has been celebrities multiple times.
Right.
But that's him as a person. Because at some point you have to separate yourself from the celebrity that you are as this talk show host and the person that you are as well. And it's okay to have an opinion on things, but there's videos of him going behind girls and fake humping them for laughs 15 years ago, and then he turns around and he purposely makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He purposely brings these moments out in their lives where he can almost say, I gotcha, you're at fault, I'm not at fault, and almost make himself seem better by putting himself next to somebody that's worse. And he's the only person on the late night shows that I see right now bringing the worst out of people.
It is weird, man.
Right, and it's like, if you're going to be so critical of everybody else, you should, my opinion, you should be a little bit self-reflective,
right,
and try to be a little bit better of a person yourself. That put me over the edge with how I felt about him, because I feel like he brought Joaquin Phoenix on there to make Joaquin Phoenix out to be kind of a little bit like his character.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit crazy. He's not like the average celebrity. He's not playing along to any of the jokes. He makes fun of multiple parts in his life for a cheap laugh, and he's more worried about a cheap laugh than he is just being an interviewer sitting next to another human being.
Yeah, he didn't treat him like an actor. Like you're exactly right. Like it seems like he brought him on with some sort of agenda to make him seem like the character, like to make him seem weird. Like, oh, this is the guy that plays Joker, isn't he weird? And Joaquin Phoenix came on very much like, yeah, this is just my job, guys. Like, this is just something I did. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
But it was purposely done so to get a real reaction out of him.
Right.
And sure, you could say that actors are pompous or whatever else, but any one person could think of a time where they're really focused on something and they're focused on doing their job well or doing something well, and something happens and it just throws them off and they get upset. That's exactly what happened. And I'm sure it's happened to him in his life. But how many times are you going to bring people on just to bring them down?
Yeah.
Rather than trying to bring people up, which there are some bad interviewers in James Corden and Jimmy Fallon, but at least they try and bring the best out of people when they bring them onto their show.
Yeah, I think that's Jimmy Fallon's strong suit. Like, he always is trying to make that person look good. Like, even to the point where, like, okay, man, like, you're kind of, like, it's a little too much. He does that so well. But it seems like Jimmy Kimmel just wants to joke on people. And honestly,
Right.
there's a whole YouTube channel that's dedicated to comps of him trying to make clowns out of people and making jokes that are weird and stuff
Right.
like that. So it's one of those things that has been pretty consistent. But yeah, that was just weird. That seemed too much like the movie to me, so that's why I had to bring it up. Like, when you told me to watch that, I watched it not expecting much, and now I want to show it to you so bad because it's just so weird. But transitioning to the movie, first off, I guess we can all go around and say like what we thought of it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was all right. I don't really need to see it again. I give it like a B for a superhero movie. That's what I think. What about you? I guess we'll start with Ann because,
I liked it. I wouldn't classify it as a superhero movie. I don't even think it was a supervillain movie. Again, like, I feel like it was like a standalone. People don't know this, but we talked about, obviously we all saw it together and we talked about it after we saw it. And so sorry if I'm saying my views again, but it was a fine standalone movie. Like, they took this character, this interesting character, and they made this like a psychological drama surrounding him, and it was awesome. I thought it was really good. I didn't think it was like amazing, this end all be all movie that everyone really kind of makes it out to be, but yeah, it's like a B. I'd say it's like a B movie.
I guess before I switch to Mick, I want to clarify. When I say superhero movie, I don't mean like typical fanfare superhero movie. I mean a movie that takes place within the lore of superheroes, because that's technically what this is. It belongs to that world, but you're 100% right. It's by no means a superhero movie. First off, it's a villain movie.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's 100% a drama. If nothing else, like, that's what this movie is. Yeah. So, what about you, Mick?
I wrote it down as an A-, being the only one out of all of the people we saw it with that loved it. And I would stick to that grade after seeing it a second time today. And that's really because take away Joaquin Phoenix' unbelievable performance, which I think that's universally agreed upon.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome.
No one's really done anything like that before. I think that Todd Phillips did a phenomenal job writing the movie. I think he did a fantastic job directing the movie. leaving little clues in there, keeping it in the world of Batman without putting it in your face that you're in the world of Batman.
Yeah.
Creating a story that can very much so not take away from the lore of the background of the character whatsoever. And something I'm sure we'll get into is just the fact that when it closes, it also leaves it open, which sometimes if done right, is some of my favorite endings. And that fits the character of Joker perfectly. And as much as I would love to see another phenomenal acting performance of Joaquin Phoenix, and I would absolutely love to see him go toe-to-toe with Batman, even though he's not necessarily built like that for now.
Yeah.
I think that being this standalone film over time is only going to make it that much better too.
Yeah. Real quick. What's up, dude?
It's good, man. I just gotta grab this.
Oh, you're cool, man. Is that what you texted me?
I'll catch you guys later.
All right, cool.
Later, Alex.
Seahawks.
But I think the exact same way. I think that Joker and Batman in Hollywood are kind of these roles that they have to be shifting. Like, there can't be anybody who is that person in the live action for multiple times. Obviously, there's Christian Bale, but like you constantly have to switch because it's a showcase of that actor. Like, okay, what new idea can they bring to this character? In voice acting, it's very consistent, right? Bruce, I think, what's his name? Bruce, no. I'm blanking on his name. Kevin Conroy. That's the guy who plays Batman. And then, of course, you have Mark Hamill who plays Joker. That's universal for voice acting. They're that character every single time, pretty much. There's slight deviations every now and then. I think Roger Craig Smith sometimes is Batman. But as far as live action goes, like, there seems to be a constantly rotating thing because it's supposed to showcase. So I feel like when you get the role of Batman or Joker, it's like the biggest deal ever. And it's definitely a lot of pressure because like you have to be like an amazing actor to do either one of those characters. Like there's no averageness about it. But what I think is cool is that now with, what is it, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and these shows that are coming out, Gotham's another one, where it's more on the focus of not really superheroes. It's just other minor stories that are going on in that universe that don't really have as much fanfare. And I feel like that's what this was, right? There was no like epic fight. I feel like in every superhero movie there's a bomb they have to get rid of. There was none of that. You know what I'm saying? Like Avengers, there's a bomb, right? They have to throw it up into outer space. Like in the last Dark Knight movie, there's a bomb that they have to get rid of. Like in every superhero movie, there's a bomb. There's no bombs in this movie. There's just a guy that's going crazy. And, I think that people really like it. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think about, because neither of us have watched Kings of Comedy all the way through. I've only watched probably the first half hour of it, and then I wasn't able to watch the rest because I was watching it illegally. What do you guys think about the comparison? Yeah, the cops came. It wasn't that my internet failed out. The police actually said, "Hey, what are you doing?" What do you guys think about the comparison of this movie to Taxi? Like what?
Oh, Taxi Driver.
I think like what?
Taxi with Queen Latifah.
No, I'm a Taxi Driver. I'm a Taxi Driver.
I think Queen Latifah was a little bit better in Taxi than Joaquin Phoenix in Joker.
As far as like visual elements, I guess, and maybe shot composition, like, did you see anything that really stood out when you were watching it and you thought of Taxi Driver? You know,
Taxi Driver is it used to be my favorite movie, so I've seen it quite a few times. And I remember after watching Joker, that's like the first thing I thought about. I was like, this is just like not just like, but it's very similar to Taxi Driver. So it is that, like, Taxi Driver is one guy who lives in a cesspool city, New York, Gotham. It's failing economically, society-wise too as well, and it just drives one man to the brink. However, I think that'd make like an awesome analysis, like video or discussion between the Joker and Travis Bickle.
Yeah.
Because the Joker is like a mentally ill guy.
Right.
He has mental health issues. He's mentally ill. Travis Bickle was not mentally ill. He just
he wanted to stand up against what was going on.
Yeah.
He felt caged in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That whole scene where he's looking in the mirror obviously is like an allegory for how he feels inside, you know?
He was like pushed to the edge, but Joker was always mentally ill, and there was like a lot of things that were the same, but there were also like a lot of differences, and I think that's the main difference is the mental health aspect of it. But yeah, there was like a lot of cool similarities, and differences and whatnot.
There is an element, though, to I think the sequence of the scenes that to me was very on the nose with Taxi Driver. So in Taxi Driver that I just mentioned, there's that infamous scene where he's looking in the mirror, he's saying, "You talking to me?" It's classic, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, there's this really weird scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character starts dancing. Remember that when he's inside? And like when you're watching it, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. Not only because like his body is super grotesque because of how skinny he is, but also you're watching a moment that's like very intimate and you know it's weird. You can feel that it's not normal, right? It's the same exact feeling that you get when you watch Robert De Niro look in the mirror and it's like, "You talking to me?" You start feeling like, "Oh, this is like awkward to watch. It's uncomfortable." Like this person is being... I feel like this person believes in their mind that they're completely alone and what they're watching no one is witnessing. But us as the audience is watching it. And I think what that does is make you really intrigued about the character.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, they have like this internal thought process that we get to see. Because in a lot of movies, we see characters act really rashly, which is what happens in this movie. Obviously, there's murder involved and stuff like that. But we never see the intimate moments where like they're looking in the mirror or they're by themselves and you can see that they're playing with these dangerous ideas. It's more fun to see that. And I think they really took that element from Taxi Driver where it feels like you're peering in on somebody.
Yeah.
It feels like you're looking in the window and like watching them when they aren't aware. And I love that
That
element.
is really
yeah,
cool.
You know?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so. The second time that I went to see it with my dad. And what was cool about hearing from him was the fact that he turned to me about halfway through the movie. And he said...
Wait, you're in the movie?
Yeah, like, and he whispers to me, he's like, "This is exactly like New York in the 70s and 80s.
Oh,
so
okay.
even though it's supposed to be Gotham, we know...
Isn't Gotham supposed to be like New
Yes.
York, right?
Yeah.
So, again, why do I put it in an A range? So where it stands out, why I think Todd Phillips did a phenomenal job and deserves some serious recognition, is because he placed us into a time period in the Batman lore that fit the characters and the story well, but he also plucked us and put us in a very real time period in American history where it would match up to the troubles of the biggest city, maybe not to that regard, but at a time where people were in severe turmoil, at a time where mental health was not even taken into consideration whatsoever. You know, in the 70s and 80s, we're only a few years being 30, 40 years removed from sterilizing boys who were overactive. That's how we treated mental illness. So he plucked us and put us right in that time period. And he left so many little things that are much bigger than a superhero movie. And I've watched every superhero movie to come out recently, and I've watched every superhero show just about to come out recently over the course of the last year, because superhero was the genre that I kind of latched onto this year to make kind of like the focal point of what I was watching. And I've watched over 180 different forms of media, whether that be full TV shows all the way through, or movies this year. And a good amount of them were superheroes. And this is not, it can't even be put in the same regard as, let's say, Endgame, which I gave an A+ because of other achievements. This is a movie in itself that stands in the regards to fantastic cinematic pieces such as Taxi Driver, because Taxi Driver also has a conflicted audience because of all of the little details that Todd Phillips did when he wrote and directed it. And when somebody writes and directs something, you truly see it for what it was intended to be,
right.
That individual's image. And he put together a perfect cast to create this character. And he said it himself that the character is not as much Joker as it is Arthur Fleck. And I think that is the achievement. That's what makes the movie so great,
right.
Is that's what was intended and that's what was accomplished.
Yeah. I think that what he means by that is that he's kind of humanizing a character that has been otherwise portrayed as inhuman. So that really is kind of the whole...
Well, he did give a clue to the ending. And that clue to the ending is that he would never make another Joker movie.
Yeah.
But he would make another Aurthur Fleck movie because he very much so believes, and he didn't say it straight out, but that ending might not necessarily be all the Joker. So he took this, he took
What
this
do you mean
beloved,
by all the Joker? I don't.
well, he alludes to the fact that it could very much so be all in Arthur's head.
Okay.
And he also, you know, that's why the ending's open.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the fact that he focuses on Aurthur and leaves it open to interpretation and leaves the background open to interpretation fits it very well in the story of the Joker. Sure, he gives it a human element. He
Right.
definitely does. The perfect human element is when he's looking at his journal and there's that little piece that he gives, like this little, you could tell that he wrote it as it very specifically to people who are struggling with mental health,
Right.
that everybody expects to see you put on a smile, put on a happy face. You have to pretend like you don't have it.
Right.
Otherwise, he did a phenomenal job of crafting this, in some ways, new character. In some ways.
See, and this is where I have to differ with you a lot, man, because I have tiny little gripes with the movie that we all discussed immediately after we
Right.
saw it outside of the movie theater. But my main problem with the movie is how it ended, right? So, and I'm just going to say this. I want everybody to contribute because I'm willing to discuss this point. I didn't like the ending because I feel like it lacked the conciseness that all the events following it made me believe that it was going to reach. It made me believe that there was going to be this pinnacle that once we get there, it was going to be a philosophical and societal statement, right? You have a character who is not really articulated in his speech or really any way he behaves because he's very awkward, he's very quiet. Sometimes you doubt like if he's even a capable adult. And that's like another thing that I didn't like about this Aurthur character, but you know, it's a difference. And so what you're expecting is that when he goes on the show, he's not going to kill himself. The reason why we know that is because we've seen him play it out twice. So the bad thing to do, writing terms, would be for him to actually do it because it's very predictable, right? So we know that he's going to do something crazy. And we're all expecting it to be a speech because in every single scene where somebody appears on live TV that's like got something wrong with them, they say something that causes like mass panic. I forget what that movie is where the guy goes, "I'm mad, I'm mad, and I'm not going to take it anymore." It's a classic one. I don't know. I gotta look
Falling
it up.
down?
I think it might be falling down. I'm mad, and then everybody like watches it, right? I was expecting a moment like that to happen, and it does in this movie. But the problem is that the Joker, Aurthur, whatever you want to call him, he's very inconcise about what his problem is with society, in my opinion. He's like, people are just mean, like they just don't care. And I'm like, that's so loose, you know, like that's such a loose definition. And so, of course, Robert De Niro's character antagonizes him, and because of all the antagonizing he does, he ends up dead, right? So my thing was that I wanted him to be uncharacteristically prolific in that moment, where you believe that he's dumb this entire movie, and then once he gets the mic in his hand, he just drops knowledge that leaves everybody speechless, almost like agreeing with him. Mm-hmm. We have all the people who think that the murders were correct agreeing with him, but as an audience, we're kind of in disbelief about that because in society, if that happened, people would be more upset than they would joining, right? So we want this character that is formerly evil to make a point that even good people would agree with. That's what I wanted to see because I think that's what the Joker is, right? There's that scene in The Dark Knight where he's like, these people went to prison. They don't deserve to live. Like, they all murdered and raped, so you should just blow the boat up. And all the good people go, yeah, he's kind of right about that. You know, that's what I wanted to see when he turned on TV. But instead we get like this kind of like rambling where he's like, no one's nice to me. Everyone hates me. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not funny. And then he shoots Robert De Niro. So I'm like, I don't like this ending. I don't feel like it had the impact that I wanted it to have. Yeah. Do I make sense when I say that?
No, that makes perfect sense. And that kind of ties in what Ant was saying, that this really isn't a Joker movie. It's an Aurthur Fleck movie. You know what I mean? And you said it best after the movie. Like, the Joker is like a criminal mastermind. In this movie, he's just like a child. Yeah, he's like a guy.
A child. That's what I'm trying. He's childlike. Yeah.
And that's not the Joker. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm afraid to see this version of the Joker, let's say, continue. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see that. And I'm not taking anything away from Joaquin Phoenix because it was unbelievable. Yeah. But like, it's just not it's not the Joker. And I know, and I don't really like comparing things, but people are like, oh, what's better, Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix? It's undoubtedly Heath Ledger because that was the Joker. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah.
They're just.
Yeah, see, that's me thinking too much about it. I'm
No,
taking
and
too
I-
you
that's
have every
fine.
right to do
That's
that because
fine.
you come from the Batman background. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
And
This movie is not supposed to be like that.
Now,
Well, in my opinion.
Because Kelly said word for word, I think that this is the best version of Joker I've ever seen.
Oh,
now
yeah.
she's just seen the Batman movies. She's never
Right.
really watched. Her brothers watched the show. She's seen it enough in passing to see multiple iterations of the Joker. And I told her it's hard to even consider this a Joker performance because Heath Ledger is the Joker. Now, where I
that was a deep statement.
where I would
Period.
Period.
yeah, can't be undone. Where I would disagree with you guys is that sure he's painted as childish, and upon watching it a second time, what I noticed is he's very purposely painted that way, and you see a very, very drastic character development, and the character development isn't in education. You know, sure, he spelled some things wrong, but it didn't mean he was stupid.
Right.
It's in his own awareness of the world around him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the movie painted the entire time. And the reason that he acted childish was because of his lack of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And when he becomes aware, all of a sudden you realize that almost like, I don't want to use this word because it's usually used positively, this potential is realized. And he is in no way, shape, or form, by the end, the least bit childish. He's 100% knowing. And in that he's knowing, he crafts this character of exactly who he's always wanted to be. Somebody who's able to do whatever he wants. And I go back to The Dark Knight where Alfred says some people just want to watch the world burn. The reason I love the fact that there was no prolific speech is because it stays true to wanting to watch the world burn. It stays true to the world screwed me, so I want to screw the world. This guy screwed me over. So, and I loved him as another person.
Right.
The last 15% of the movie, it's the Joker. So it's going from an awareness, and he ends up turning into the Joker. Now, why I like where they left it off without the speech, he kills the guy, and only the guy who did him wrong. He kills the guys on the subway for doing him wrong.
Right.
He only kills the people that do him wrong.
And his mom.
And his mom, which again is true to, even we go back to Heath Ledger's, because it's the greatest performance of the Joker. It's kind of what we go back to as this is how we see him. And it stays true to it. And if you look at the ending, he's reveling in what he was able to accomplish.
Right.
Absolute anarchy. And he's not that leader figure. He doesn't ever want to be that leader figure. He's reveling in what he was able to accomplish, but he doesn't give the speech so he doesn't turn into the leader. Now, what I love, what's commonly said, and Todd Phillips said in a few years he's going to come out and say exactly what he meant with the ending, because he'll let everybody have their chance to have their own say for a while before he comes out and says it. The most common theory with the ending is that when we see him in that room being interviewed at Arkham, why they have it is because apparently it takes place about 15 years later when Batman is in Gotham. Batman is a character in Gotham, and he kills her, and he's running around, and then you don't know if everything that happened before really happened. But it still leaves it. It's almost like it's leaving it right before Heath Ledger's Joker ends up coming into fruition. So he still has that opportunity to be the Joker everybody expects.
Okay, see, to me, that's a leap, because chronologically, the way you watch the movie is the riot happens, and then, you know, they lift him up into the air. There's kind of like this Messiah scene with Joker, and then we kind of cut to black, and then we cut back, and he's in the room with the lady.
Right.
He murders the lady, and he's running around free. When you watch that movie, there's nothing to tell you that that's the future. You assume that he gets arrested after the riot.
Except for the lady. The lady is very similar in look, and I paid very close attention to it this time.
To the black woman
To
that
the-
was
to-
that was
in
talking to him earlier.
The difference is her hair is grayer and her hair is shorter. That is the base. And from what I believe, because I was following it a bit online, that's the base to most people making the theory's point. Also, why they kind of cast Batman and why they
Is
still
that the same
give,
actress? Like, is that?
I'm very curious to see. I
Okay.
haven't checked up on it
if
there.
it was the same actress, then I'd give credence to that theory. But otherwise,
Right.
the way it was edited, I feel like it's made to believe that he just got
Joker
arrested.
didn't really look different.
But what's the point of that? What's the point of that scene otherwise? Every single point, every single scene, every shot, every placement, every song, everything had a very distinct purpose. That scene is not there to just say, oh, he's still the Joker in an asylum.
Well, I feel like because that's the way that he is in the. I was about to say anime. Wow, I've been discussing anime for so long. That's the way that he is in the normal canon of Batman, right? Joker. He's a regular Arkham Asylum, and he's constantly going in and out. He's escaping, and then he's killing people, and then he's staying in. So like, I feel like it was like, and now we release him into the normal circumstance of events, which is he's in Arkham and he's running around. So this is how he got there. Like, I feel like that's what it was trying to say.
But that still could leave it open to being in the future. I think.
I guess, yeah.
And that in the future, perspective of it, that it takes place in the future.
Yeah.
Would also lend very well to why he said you will never see him go toe to toe with Batman. He leaves that. He leaves the Joker that we know out of the movie. In most, I can't say that, but the criminal mastermind, the one who's outsmarting mob bosses, the one who is letting society decide what they deem good and evil, the one who legitimately wants to see the world burn, the one who thinks of everything.
Yeah.
It's not there purposely in the movie.
Right. In this movie, though, it kind of makes you side with that ideology a little bit. It doesn't make you. It leads you to do that. And here's my qualm about that. I feel that shows about anti-heroes are compelling, right? But
he's not an anti-hero.
He kind of is in this movie.
In that movie, definitely. Oh my gosh.
Here's my thing, though. Like, there's series that do it right, and these are the two biggest examples, the ones that we both love: Breaking Bad and The Sopranos. There's nothing just about Tony Soprano. There's nothing just about Walter, right? They just do bad things, and we watch it. And we cheer for them anyway because we're like, I don't know. Same thing with Death Note. We're just like, man, I hope like pulls off murdering all these people. That's like what we hope. In this movie, there's nothing like too wrong that we hope he pulls off. Obviously, what he's doing is wrong, but like you said, there's a reason for it. Everybody he kills is somebody that's wronged him. So there's at least justification in that. In The Sopranos, like, we just watch Tony kill people frivolously. Same thing in Breaking Bad. So I don't understand why they didn't lean more into the villain aspect for one of the most notorious villains of all time. They kind of made him anti-hero-ish, which I don't think he had to do. Same thing with the Venom movie. Like, I was like, Venom, this is an irredeemable character that eats people's brains. How are they going to do this? And, like, he's just this hero guy. I'm like, can we not do a movie about a villain and make him 100% villainous? That's what I want to see.
I think what makes Joker in this Joaquin Phoenix Joker or Todd Phillips Joker, whatever we want
What are we going to call him? Let's figure out a name for this version of the Joker right now. Is he the Jokester? Who is he? Because this is not the Joker.
Arthur.
It's Arthur.
It's
Yeah,
Arthur.
Arthur.
Okay, perfect.
This version of Arthur.
So I think in my opinion, what really seals the deal of him as an anti-hero is the fact that his intention wasn't to watch the world burn. It was to make people laugh and to make people happy. And
That's an
that was
interesting
probably
take.
the most human side of him.
That is an interesting
you know?
take.
And seeing him up on stage, like, that's when he was most happy in the movie, was telling the jokes.
Now, my question would be this. What if that was all in his head? And that is a very realistic takeaway that some viewers have gotten. And it's left open enough because it ends in Arkham to still have that be possible.
I don't know what the evidence is that suggests that.
I have two commentaries real quick. I'm sorry I'm talking so much. First off, I want to say to that, the point that you just brought up with the fact that he just wanted to make people laugh. It's a really great point because we were talking about the world burning. He seemed like he could have been reasoned with. That's the only difference between Arthur and I think the Joker is like if he actually was a successful comedian and he did make people laugh and people thought he was funny, that he wouldn't go down that road, right? Which I think is uncharacteristic to watching the world burn. So it seemed like he could have been reasoned with because people who want to watch the world burn, they can't be reasoned with, right?
Yeah.
Right? The other, what were you going to say? Go for it.
I was just going to make the point that it was not a cut and dry ending. I know that was your takeaway, but IGN did not take that away. IGN.
Oh, you watched the video?
IGN 100% was saying that it was open. Todd Phillips himself, when they asked him if it was an open ending, if that was all in his head, he didn't say, no, what I intended is what I intended. He said, I will reveal the ending in a few years. And if it's cut and dry like you're putting it, he has nothing to reveal except, haha, exactly what you saw is what you saw. It's not the case.
But don't you think that that's a very typical like film guy thing to say?
Not
where
necessarily.
It's like, it could be whatever you want it to be.
Not necessarily.
I don't want to bash. Before we dive in, the whole "did it happen or was it a dream" thing to me is the biggest cop out in fiction.
Yeah, exactly. I hate that.
Dude, as soon as you do that, I'm so mad that I invested.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Then what is the weight of the consequence of what happened? Yes, it was a fun ride, but like I know nothing about the actual character now.
And if they decide to do that, it better be damn good. And I'm being serious.
It better be amazing, right? There better at least be a scene of his real life to compare it to the dream, so that you can have an interesting contrast to think about after the movie.
I feel like that's such like a modern thing. Like, oh, it was actually in his head the
whole time.
Oh, like, no,
and everyone's like, "Whoa, what a twist!
This is insane.
I've never seen
Best
that."
Joker ever. No, like,
see, so
that's so funny. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I can understand the anti-hero, but I can't call him a full anti-hero because you were made to actually root for Tony. You root for Joker in part of this. Some people, so I'll give you a perfect example of what happened when I was in the theater today.
Yeah.
One guy cheered when the three guys on the train were killed.
Really?
My wife turned to me and she was like, I'm actually scared that they're cheering right now. Okay? Like,
I
hold on.
Talk about that.
But
That's a whole other thing I want to talk about.
So for some, sure.
Are we good on drinks and snacks, by the way?
Yes,
right,
he
cool.
could be a bit of an anti-hero. But there was a guy at one point who turned around to the audience when they laughed after he was about to kill Robert De Niro and said to everybody, like he was this prolific person, why is everybody laughing? So that is exactly, yeah, that
was
is
some interesting movie goers.
Right. You're not kidding. Sunday mornings, that's when you go, that's when the interesting people come out.
The freaks come out.
The intellectuals.
So regardless, I think the point is, regardless of what the end might be, he was a villain, and you might not see him outsmart mob bosses. You might not see him, outsmarting Batman or outsmarting heroes or taking over crime in Gotham. But he was a villain. He murdered people.
Right.
Even if they're people who wronged him, he murdered people. I find it hard to believe that the majority of people was happy when he killed Robert De Niro, happy to see the Waynes killed. Sure, bad people are dying, but bad people have always died under the Joker.
Right.
He's always killed bad people, way more than he's killed. I mean, the iterations that I've seen of the Joker, sure, he's done some crazy things, and that video of him killing the entire studio audience went viral of in the Dark Knight animated show.
Yeah.
But there's not many iterations that actually display him killing many innocent people.
Yeah. No, I agree with you that this movie makes him out to be a villain. They just don't lean into it as hard as I think that they should have. But and to get back to what you were saying, and I agree with your point though. They did a good job of showing you that what he was doing was ultimately unjust. You were about to say something, and I think you're about to make the comparison to what was it, real life violence in response to the Joker character. Is that where you're going?
Not that, but that is one point. It's back on the anti-hero thing. I think the Joker, and people don't want to admit it, but when he killed those guys on the train, like, you were happy that they died.
Oh yeah, no, you're supposed to feel that scene is supposed to make you feel satisfied.
He was just a guy, a sick guy on the train getting harassed and beaten up by three guys.
But I think what you're trying to take away from the scene though is that at first his resolve was to be peaceful. He just wanted to, because she was about to get sexually assaulted, right? So what he was doing was to laugh to take attention off of her, so that she would be okay, which worked. He got violent when they started getting violent with him. Which to me is like, okay, that's not even wrong. Like, when I look at that scene, I'm like, dude, if someone was beating you up in a subway and you had a gun, like...
It's not... it's self-defense, right?
I mean, yeah, normally people wouldn't shoot. They'd brandish the gun and then everyone run away. He just went straight for the shot. But it's not far from what happens in real life when somebody's getting beat up by three guys, right? When you have a gun, you're going to try and save yourself. So, like, that scene is something you identify. I do find it interesting that Kelly was scared when that guy was laughing, because that's a weird scene to cheer for, right?
Yeah, it is.
That is an alarming scene to cheer for.
I don't think you would not really cheer internally, but you would. There is a level of satisfaction in that scene. You know what I mean? And that's another thing that paints him as the anti-hero and not the villain.
Right.
Because you don't want to see, again, this guy getting beat up. At this point in the movie, he was innocent.
Right.
He was a completely innocent guy.
But they do, like Andrew mentioned, they do lean into the villain. And by the end, you don't feel that way. By the end of Sopranos, you want to see Tony live. By the end of Breaking Bad, you want to see Walt live. Mm-hmm. When you root for an anti-hero, they're an anti-hero from start to finish. Sure, he has anti-hero qualities for half of the film. For the other half of the film, he just beats a brain in on a guy who wronged him. Okay, sure, but a guy who did what anybody would do. Hey, I had nothing to do with the gun. Hey, to the cops, I don't know, this guy had the gun. Don't look at me. And he got his brain beaten in. So that's why I wouldn't go as far as to say he's an anti-hero. When you get to the end, he makes that legitimate, and that was the point that I'm trying to make. And almost like what Todd Phillips did so well is he created this character of Aurthur. And he created the character of Aurthur, and you want to know a ton about Aurthur, where you forget that it's almost a Joker movie a little bit. You still know it's a Joker movie, but for a little bit, you're more so really interested in the character of Aurthur. And you really see the Joker come out scene by scene. When he kills those 3 guys, when he's walking with the gun pointed, he looks exactly like Heath Ledger's Joker. He looks at the stiff legs, the gun pointed out. He looks like every iteration of Joker I've ever seen. He did that I think he did that purposefully, because when I saw that a second time, I'm like, whoa, that looks like the Joker, and I didn't catch it the first time. But he doesn't look like a guy who's never shot a gun when he's walking up to the guy he already shot. He looks like the Joker with the gun. The gun gave him the power and his realization. So it's really cool because that character of the Joker that we know of is wanting to watch the world burn. If you want, and Todd Phillips, I guess what inspired him was The Killing Joke. In The Killing Joke, he's this guy who had redeeming qualities, who had a life and was very happy with things, and a tragic event that Batman causes all of a sudden turns him.
I think that's a good detail.
Correct. Turns him into this guy who wants to see the world burn. This is the same case where there's the character of Aurthur who has redeemable qualities. He's an anti-hero. You root for him in some ways. And then there's when he becomes the Joker and he turns into the character that you want to see the world burn. And you're questioning the entire movie, especially when you find out about his girlfriend, what's in his head and what's not.
Right.
And when you look at Heath Ledger's Joker, nobody does it better than him in who is he? What is real and what isn't when it comes to this guy, and what's his purpose?
Yeah.
And it leads up to that. So let's say that ending isn't in 15 years and that ending's right afterwards. Nevertheless, it still sets him up, in my eyes, to be the Joker that he's going to be without having to show that on screen, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that scene where he kills that guy by bashing his head in, I thought that was done really, really well, because you can really feel all of his trauma and everything that's going on come out at that one moment, because that was such a grotesque beating.
It was brutality. You could feel the brutality behind that. Yeah,
there was a lot of emotion in that. That's another reason I think Joaquin did really well in this movie, was that one scene too. But then I totally agree now. You raised a lot of good points. So I think he started as the anti-hero. Then I think that's when he became the villain. But in my opinion, I don't think he became the Joker until he stood on top of the cop car. I don't think it was when he killed Robert De Niro. No,
that's interesting.
I think when he saw.
So became the Joker we know of. You mean?
Yes, I would say so.
The idea of the character,
because he saw the approval. He saw that people are sharing his ideals and this Joker ideology. So I think that's when it was. I think him shooting Robert De Niro, I think that was still in that villain phase. So it was the anti-hero, the villain phase, and then as soon as he was on top of the car, I think that's when he became the Joker. Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah.
When he got that validation.
Yeah, and I don't think one thing that we were talking about outside of the movie right after we saw it the first time was about inciting the riot, and like I mentioned to you, I have another good friend too. You guys know Batman pretty equally.
Yeah.
And I was interested to hear his take because he actually had a little bit different of a take. He I guess he would have rated it higher than you did at the beginning of the episode. And I asked him specifically about that mob scene because you were kind of questioning the mob scene, and I was very curious to what he had to say. He said it actually, he really enjoyed it because in his eyes, the anarchy that he's always after, lending to your point really well, is exactly what culminates into that scene. So he's experiencing the anarchy that he's always after all throughout the life of his character.
Right.
So I do think that fits him really well. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to see an anti-hero exist in, so we're thinking like, let's say the worst of our society is Gotham. Sometimes it's presented, not all the time, but sometimes it's presented as the worst of our society. It's not too far-fetched to believe that with people severely struggling and people in power saying what they are about people who are severely struggling, to see people rally against or rally with somebody who's considered one of their own.
Yeah.
You know, in that regard, somebody who's like beaten down, comes from poverty like he does. And then these three guys who got everything, who they assume their personalities because of the person who ends up representing them in Thomas Wayne. I don't think it's too much of a far cry to believe that they would protest on top of the building, you know, or rather at something of an event like Thomas Wayne's.
Well, now that you're spinning it that way, I would say that Aurthur he's definitely an anarchist. Like that's not debatable, and he spurs everybody to anarchy at the end of the movie. I'd say that typically Joker as a character in other most mediums is not an anarchist. He's an absurdist, which is he really has no deep philosophy. He's just 100% absurdity.
Yeah.
So I think like that's the reason why there's a mob thing. And again, when I was watching it, I was still in the Joker mindset. Like, Joker's not an anarchist, but this character is. So it makes a lot more sense now that you put it that way.
Yeah, it's like the end of the movie. They're not painting him as a villain. It's like the end of the movie. It's like he's painted as this revolutionary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
that's
so
exactly
I think
what
the
it
anarchist is a really good point because this whole movie, like people going into the movie, they were like, this is gonna be, you know, it's going to incite people to want to shoot up theaters. It's not. It wasn't that at all.
Yeah.
If anything, it's like a very class-conscious movie, and it's just like, I don't know if that was the intention, but that's how I took it.
You think
so? Oh my
God.
God.
We're about to dive really deep here. First,
Yes.
I want to talk about that. Everyone's always scared that, like, oh, the Joker movie's going to incite violence, and this is why. Not only because of, like, the past incidents where people, there was a shooter that dressed up as the Joker or something. I don't even know the details on it.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it's the mindset, right, of somebody who is, they feel insignificant in society and then they lash out violently, right? Which is echoed a lot in school shooting cases where people feel like, you know, I don't have any friends, I'm bullied, I feel invisible, and then they strike out so everybody knows them. And I feel like people draw parallels between that and they're like, oh, is this going to inspire someone to violence? But at the end of the day, I just want to put in my 2 cents on this.
Right.
It's common knowledge. It's a movie. It's fiction. Like, you know, that really can't.
Right.
And this violence wasn't blind violence. It wasn't like blind fury. It was like, I was getting, someone beat me up. Someone, you know, framed me from crushing my dreams. You know what I mean?
Right. So it is different in that regard. And I think that I'm glad that they did the movie without any reservations because of that. Because you can never let, you know, people stop you from creating, or you're letting these real life villains win. If you let them actually impact
your creative vision,
your creativity, your light, there's no happiness linked to this movie, of course, but even like you're letting it impact life in general and the way life moves forward. Now there does need to be a balance between, we definitely do, before the movie they had a nice little message that was like, end the stigma of mental health, and I think it's an important message.
I didn't catch that.
It wasn't at the one we saw, it was at the movie that I actually saw today. It wasn't when we saw it.
Hold on, let me unpack that. Was that
was right before it was right before they gave that message, you know, that little before scene, silence your phones. Right before that was a message of end the stigma of mental health.
What was it?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It was a foundation that it was like a mental health foundation.
So is that separate
had a
from the
video.
movie though?
So completely separate from the movie.
Okay, because
Yeah.
my question is like, if I get a Blu-ray of this movie and I watch
No.
it, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna see it. That's
No.
what
This was in some
You're laughing 'cause I
capacity.
said Blu-ray.
It was either a paid for, well, obviously it was paid for, paid for ad, and
Okay.
or it could have been of the. I know the victims of the Aurora shooting
Yeah.
were pushing for some action to be done with increased security, like we saw the security guard on night one when we saw it. But I know that this could also be linked to that.
Yeah.
Now, I when we're comparing it to real life, there definitely needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance of both understanding that mental health needs to be something that's talked about, and we need to improve on how we see our own mental health, our fellow Americans' mental health, each other's mental health, recognizing it as a real issue and finding ways to help one another. And there has to also be a balance of not coming up with excuses for people who let themselves go down a very dark and twisted path that ruins the lives of multiple people. There's no reason that in this case, this is somebody who, again, based on Todd Phillips being very conscious to what he was doing in the movie, the clown was glorified for doing what he did. In society today, when somebody does something atrocious, they might not always incite riots and stuff in favor of them. They are glorified by our TV and media because people are more concerned about the money that they make and the money they can make after off of being the first to cover.
So you think
The
that was
first
an
to
intentional
interview.
statement?
I do think it was
Okay.
intentional, just as I think Robert De Niro's character was intentional, just as I think that the classes were intentional, and Thomas Wayne's character running for mayor was extremely intentional. Everything he did, and when this
As an
movie,
allegory for Trump?
well, in some capacities, I'd like to say yes. And it's not like a slight to Trump, and I can't say for sure. In other capacities, I think more so rather than saying yes, it's slandering Trump. No, I think it's more so talking about the differences in class systems, and it's very evident within our politicians that they live in a much different class system than most Americans.
And I gotta say that,
and I think that he
yeah.
could be an allegory for many politicians, even if this came out before Trump was president. He could still be, and he's a very real mentality of a lot of politicians today as well.
I gotta say that the way that they write Thomas Wayne in this movie is very Trump-like. With that scene in the
Sure.
bathroom where he punches the guy in the face, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about," and like he's very blunt. He's this rich guy who's also kind of like very strong-willed.
Sure.
I feel like it was kind of similar.
And there's parallels between them. I mean, Trump's been around for forever. There's parallels between them, this business mogul in both scenarios, for quite a while,
Yeah.
even in other iterations. But I do think that when we're talking about strictly, society and how they view this and in terms of society, I think it does an important job of, and it's again, it allows more, or it alludes more to why I would give it an A range,
Right.
is because it does this really good job of showing like, yeah, end the stigma of mental health. That's why he leaves that message in the Notebook. That's why he paints Aurthur the type of person that he does. But at the same time, this is not in any way right and should not be glorified. It shouldn't be glorified. We do both wrong. We don't take care of the mentally health to the best of our ability, and we glorify the people who do things wrong. If we stopped glorifying them, I can't say for sure, but maybe it could have a different impact on the future.
I agree with that. I agree that people that commit these mass shootings, they shouldn't really be named or publicized in the way that we currently publicize and name them. So I agree with that. I just want to switch lanes here.
Sure.
There's a few things that the movie did that I really liked, in terms of keeping some of the more comic book elements in there. For example, I really like how Thomas and Martha Wayne are killed by someone who's pretty much a stranger, just inconsequential to the story. And there's a previous Batman movie, I think it's the one with Keaton, where it's revealed that Joe Chill is the one that killed the parents, and he's actually the Joker. And so it's full circle, you know what I'm saying? And as an audience, you're supposed to be like, oh, it's so fitting that they're fighting each other because, that's the person that murdered Batman's parents. But I do like the fact that it's just a random act of violence that happens against them. Yes, there was a motive behind it, but it's it's the idea that bad things can happen at any time to good people, and like life still has to go on, which is the whole premise of the Batman comics, right?
Right.
Where Batman is just like, dude, I'll never know the name of the person that killed my parents, but it's not important. Like, what's important is what do I do in reaction to this, right? And then the Killing Joker is trying to convince Batman, look, the fact that that could happen to you, being as good as your parents were, means that life is meaningless. And of course, Batman's like, no, like that's not the case at all. The point of life is to just endure these hardships and to change it according to them. Whereas Joker refuses to change, right? So I feel like that was cool that they didn't have the Joker be the one that killed his parents, because that would have been so hokey and just goofy. And yeah, the other thing I like is how they kind of showed Thomas and Martha Wayne as people who were at least trying to help Gotham in some capacity, because that's always been a consistent theme in the comics where they're trying to intervene and make life a little bit better. They kind of painted Thomas in a negative light, but I guess overall they showed that they were trying to help a little bit. So those are two things I kind of appreciated.
And I like that they did that, again, because it could lead to the jadedness that eventually happens, because something that I always wonder, somebody who hasn't really read the comics, has followed the animated series and watched the movies, is, and it's something in general that I wonder, and Marvel does a good job doing this, where do you get these heroes and villains, especially if the villains come first? In a lot of cases, we see the villains come first. In this regard, we see the villain come first. I think what they do a good job doing is, like, there's this extremely poor, very jaded Gotham. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that people who see what Aurthur did want to replicate their own version of his anarchy in some capacity, leading way to, Gordon, who's going to go through all of that. And the show just came out with him. I haven't really watched it recently, or I haven't watched it yet. And then eventually leading to Batman in regards to just Gotham, not much larger. And this is why I would disagree, and I would love to see continue this new world for DC and this new direction for DC, is the same reason that everybody was rooting for the Dark Knight trilogy to continue on with phenomenal directors and actors to push the DC universe. Yeah. Because with Iron Man, if that failed, the entire plan for Marvel was over.
I want to dip into that.
And what they do fantastically is they build a real world of heroes and villains.
MCU, bro. Like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Of heroes and villains. And it's pretty clear on where they came from. Mm-hmm. But they do a great job of also saying that they've always existed. Right. When Iron Man comes, he brings out this new light of heroes. But then we see that, okay, but there was always Captain America. And what was really cool about this is showing you where the villain comes from. It also shows you where the hero comes from. Yeah. And in both regards, it really could be, in that regard, a really good world builder, and it's not going to be. Yeah. But with what they're doing with this young version of the Batman, with these young versions of the villains in this Batman movie, it could be a good story builder in that regard, comparing it to, again, the way Iron Man did that.
And that's more for you as the viewer to contemplate, like, okay, if they did a series of these, like, how would it be? Like, there'd be a lot of different possibilities and stuff. One more comic book thing I want to reference that I really, really liked. There's a lot of revelry. How do you say that when someone's reveling in something? Revelry? How can I can't say that right now.
I can't either.
It's so hard to say.
Revel.
Somebody's reveling in something. Revelry?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Anyways, Joker is very much that in the comics where there's chaos. He loves to dance and that's his thing. Like when everybody's hurting themselves, like he dances around. He's kind of like the guy. What's the story of the dude that's playing the violin as the city burns?
That's Nero.
Nero,
plays
right?
The harp, yeah.
Right, who plays the harp or something like that. That is 100% what that character is. Like when the city's burning, like he's laughing. So there's a scene. The two favorite scenes in the movie for me was when he lets the little guy go. That was awesome because when he couldn't reach that latch, as an audience, you're just like, dude, is he gonna? No. It was so. Everyone in the theater had the same reaction. There was that big gasp where everyone was like, oh, like there's a groan, and that was a great scene. My favorite scene, other than that, was the whole subway chase scene where he is very meticulous about starting a fight so that the whole entire train is fighting. He takes a mask and he's very diligently like moving from car to car to make sure that he can outsmart the police. At the very end of the scene, we see the 2 officers getting kicked by a bunch of the protesters, and he starts to dance. Like he's like dancing and laughing. That's like, I was like, dude, that's the essence of that character. It's the same exact essence that he has when he gets up really close to the TV camera in the studio and like starts laughing and talking to it, like before he gets tackled. That's when I was like, that is the essence that I really like. That's always shown in the comic book, where when things go wrong, he gets happy, and it's what makes it really entertaining to watch, because somebody smiling and laughing as someone else gets beat up is funny, you know.
It's twisted.
Yeah, it's twisted, but it's also funny in a really dark way. But I don't want to get too off topic, but on the topic of Iron Man, did you guys hear about the whole China thing that went on with that? And I just found out recently. So obviously South Park did a episode on, and I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh yeah.
About what's going on with the NBA right now in China, and there's more information coming on now because of the South Park episode that talks about how a lot of media conglomerates here in the United States and the West do a lot to cater to the Chinese audience and consumers, because a lot of their money comes from that.
Sure.
And it was revealed, I'm not sure how recently, that there is a Chinese version of Iron Man, right, where it's dubbed over. It's the same live action footage, but it's dubbed for a Chinese audience, where they have an extra scene that wasn't shown in the Western release of the Iron Man movie. It's a 12-minute scene of Tony Stark going to China when he gets the shrapnel in his chest and Chinese doctors operating on him. And it's only shown in the Iron Man Chinese version.
All I have to say is, thank God we live in America.
Wait.
Because American propaganda, at least we live in a place, and American propaganda, it still goes on. It's funny you say that. I was teaching propaganda to my students recently. And we've looked at, because we're creating our own propaganda for the American Revolution. I've mentioned I've written a pretty long paper on American propaganda during World War II. So propaganda in America exists. It still exists today. But that, if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't find it too surprising that that would happen in the same place where the president decided to name himself president for life.
Right.
That propaganda is the less power you give to the people, the more propaganda that's purposefully created.
Right.
So it's no surprise that an American hero, because he's a bit of an anti-hero in that, an American hero is saved in China. Again, it lends to the propaganda that America needs China. I would 100% say that was done on purpose.
Oh, no.
And we live in a very
is.
skeptical world. But
it's more of a financial angle, I think, just because of how
Sure.
big of a contributor that China is right now to the Hollywood, especially
Yeah.
to the Western movie market. And that's a Disney move, you know?
Sure,
In the military.
but it could also be required. You know, like could you show this? You know, America had requirements for Hollywood in different times. You can't show this, you can show that.
Yeah.
And it's such a minor little bit of it.
Yeah.
But there are countries right now that have their own media portion of the government.
Yeah.
Where there are people who do media control.
Control, of course,
And
100%.
and I would not be surprised to see it in China and say that this is required.
Yeah.
Catering to a Chinese audience is, you know, that's why there's 100 Pirates of the Caribbean movies and 100 Transformers.
See 'em all.
They are only still existing because of the Chinese market.
I mean,
But you bring up a very good point, and it's also why certain movies are not allowed to be shown in certain countries.
Oh, yeah.
So going off of the Joker, you know, trying to bring it back a little bit to the Joker, I'm very curious to see if there is anywhere that didn't show the Joker.
Man, I don't know what they're gonna do with that movie. I don't think that it's one that's gonna go over well in any sort of Chinese movie-going environment. But before we completely switch gears, did you guys hear the apology that that Trey Parker and Matt Stone gave to? They gave an apology to the Chinese who were offended by the episode.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the funniest things I've ever read. So, official apology to China from Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. Chi or Xi, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
She doesn't look just like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune into our 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn's sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China?
Can't beat him.
Sucks because
Can't beat 'em.
I haven't watched the episode.
I haven't
I'm
either.
sorry. I don't want to spoil it.
I haven't
man.
either, but
I'm
can't
sorry.
beat
I
'em.
didn't finish the last season,
Okay.
and I'm ashamed
Oh.
of myself because South Park is my favorite show.
That the last episode of last season is fantastic.
I'll finish it.
My
I'll
bad,
watch it
yeah,
tomorrow.
but this is obviously in keeping with the whole NBA thing, and that's huge right now. Like
Right.
they're requiring apologies, and because
Sure.
China is such a huge fan of the NBA. Like that's
Yeah.
the
that's
Sixers
big.
just played them the other day, and they whooped them. They took them to school. It was like 130 to like 70.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. I saw that.
That's wild, man. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys because I just think it's so funny.
Yeah, and I mean it's nice. There are. It's no surprise that companies as big as Disney,
Yeah.
as big as Universal,
They're appealing.
would cater to, or at
12-minute
least
scene.
I know.
Wild. 12 minutes in a AAA
They
movie.
they don't want to lose their, their market. And I'm not saying that's
Right.
just saying in general they don't want to lose their market.
Yeah.
And we do live in this balance, and they hit it perfectly. I know I keep kind of switching it back to Joker a little bit,
No, it's cool.
but
It's the theme of the episode.
it's
Yeah.
no surprise that a movie's created, and in this lore there's this big question in regards to classes and where's money going, where's money or lack thereof.
Yeah.
What's that going to do to people in regards to like the mob in that movie, and inciting the riots and everything, and it that's kind of a hot topic today. Do you side with the people who are in favor of, make the money, do what you need to do, forget about them, or you don't get our money because of this reason? And ironically, that is the whole point of the Iron Man movie, is he sells out to deal arms for profit only, and he doesn't see anything wrong with it until he realizes the damage that he's doing,
The implications,
and what the impact it could have on the people that he loves. And then he switches gears and he pulls out of that, and he from then on only invests the money in purely helping people.
Right.
And we're kind of in a situation where we're like trying to come up with those same solutions, or we're trying to grapple with those same things.
Right.
Do we cater to propaganda? Do we cater to a certain audience? Or do we say, we're not giving you our blank entertainment goods, money, whatever, because of this type of treatment? And it's funny that that comes up the same time as it's so prevalent in the Joker, the same time, the South Park episode and the trade deals and blah, blah, blah. We could go on and why it's so prevalent today. But it's funny that comes up because Iron Man's been out for quite a while now.
Yeah, it just it was one of the examples that's supposed to show how this propaganda stuff happens. My opinion on it is this: it's fiction. It's a movie. It's really not a big deal. If they want to make a funny scene for Chinese people, shouldn't say funny, a dramatic, patriotic, I guess would be the word to use, scene for Chinese people. In the Iron Man movie, that's only the Chinese version. Knock yourself out.
But
you can't buy a Western copy of that movie with the scene in it. So it's not like they're forcing it on any Western viewers. It's just like you would do, for example, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In Germany, it's called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because ninja is a violent word for German people. I'm not making that up. Apparently,
like Jojo Rabbit's not going to be shown in Germany.
yeah, it was stuff like that. So like, it's not really that big of a deal. I feel like it's not like, oh, that's an un-American thing to do, or like people are bowing to the Chinese. No, they're just trying to appease people who are buying their product.
Right. And I totally agree with you. I'm
Yeah.
not going on some radical idea that everybody and everything is
Yeah.
against each other or something like that. But Have you ever been inspired by a fictional character?
100%.
That's why propaganda is in our entertainment and always has been in our entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Always. It always has been, and it always will be in some capacity.
Yeah. I think for the Chinese people, though, this is more of a scene of like pride. Like, yeah, the Chinese doctor helped them out. You know what I'm saying? The Chinese doctor did it.
Yeah, sure. It's a bit of nationalism. So.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So
and South Park called them out for always doing it.
Yeah.
And then on the opposite side, it's funny because we live in a world right now where if there was a scene where it was changed to be like America, pro-America, Americans and countries outside of America would be like, oh, why do they need to do that?
Yeah.
So it's funny, and I don't disagree with the people who would say, why would they need to do that? But it's just funny because it's like, okay, they're doing it for the Chinese, fine. If it's propaganda, fine. Let them change their minds. Mm-hmm. If it's American, no. We want the unadulterated. We don't want to be convinced that we need to do this.
Yeah.
And I think it just lends it lends to the societies. It definitely lends to the societies and the mentality of the people. And that's why Joker is as popular as it is in America today, because it lends to the American audience. It lends to the issues that are going on today.
Right.
It might have taken place in a different time that would take somebody like my dad and other older people, an older generation, back to another time in America, back to another place in America at another time. But it's also very prevalent to the issues that are going on today.
Right.
Again, why Todd Phillips created this thing that is being revered right now. And the reason that I would put it in that upper echelon of movies that came out this year, definitely. Upper echelon of movies ever, I wouldn't say that. But this year, I would definitely put it in the upper echelon of movies, for sure. Yeah. Nobody made anything like that.
That was going to be my like ending question is like, how do you guys think that this movie is going to be remembered like 10 years from now?
Oh, it'll be remembered.
Yeah, will it hold up, right?
Yeah, it'll hold up.
Because
you think so?
Let's think about what it is. It really is like, it's social commentary in a way. I feel like this is one of their ways to be like, okay, we're going to take this character and we're going to make him the mascot, essentially. So again, like, he starts as the anti-hero, becomes the villain, and then he becomes this accidental revolutionary, right? And that's what it is. I feel like that's what Todd Phillips did. Like, that was, I don't know what his views are on anything, but that's what it kind of feels
like.
It feels like that's what he was trying to do. Because again, like we were saying, like I said earlier, like, people heard this movie was coming out, they thought, oh, this is going to incite people. It's going to incite mass shooters. It's going to incite maybe this nationalistic mass shooter thing, because that's what mass shootings have kind of been. It has been these white nationalists, you know what I mean? And it's funny because the Joker is a meme. There's a great subreddit I follow. It's called Gamers Rise Up. Yeah, it's gamers. So the mascot of the gamers is the Joker.
Yeah.
And everyone's in on the joke. It's all a big joke. So the joke is like, they paint their face. The Joker is like, oh, minorities, all women, blah, 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 this, that, and the other.
What?
So yeah, dude, it's hilarious, right? And it's all one big joke. It's not, no one takes it seriously, but some people do take that seriously. Yeah. So that's why people are so scared of this movie, because they see this character as the Joker and they think that's going to feed into that, people who actually have that very nationalistic mentality, who want to go and perpetrate these horrific mass shootings against Jewish people, against black people, against like Spanish people, right? But that's not what the movie is. It's actually, like we were saying, it's a very class-conscious movie. And I think that that's pretty radical in terms of a film, how the Joker turned. It's not like, it is like, I feel like it is a very left thing, but it is anarchy at the end of the movie, which is pretty crazy. So they, Aurthur, that's the name, right? Aurthur goes into that. He sees the woman. Gotham's like a cesspool, and no one's getting any funding. Look where he lives with his mom. His mom's not getting any aid. She wants to get aid, blah, 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 and he's not even getting any aid. They shut down his treatment, that because mental health really wasn't taken seriously. And the lady said the most pivotal thing in the movie, it's probably the most important line of the movie. She goes, they don't care about you, and they don't care about me either. So I feel like that's the point of the Joker. I feel like that's what Todd Phillips went out to do. It's a very class-conscious movie. It's the Waynes who are on, the upper echelon, right? The bourgeoisie, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the lower people. You have Aurthur and the people who are following his ideals, essentially. You know, those are the people who feel, you know, riled up by him. So at the end of the movie, he didn't say anything against, like, classes. He just said he was tired of being, you know, underappreciated. He didn't say anything specifically. I kind of feel like that's about Trump, because Trump never said anything white nationalistic, but people get this, like, incited thing by him. They think, like, they use him as a mascot, even though he's never said that.
The othering.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Where there are people who are our others, and we have to be pitted against them.
Yeah, so, like, Joker in himself really wasn't an anarchist, but the people were incited by that, you know, other people who really didn't want that. You know, I don't think I'm sorry if this is rude, but I don't know if he was intelligent enough to really rationalize that, right? Am I correct in saying that? Did he really say anything?
We talked in the beginning of this podcast about how his awareness was questionable.
Yeah, I have to watch
up
the movie again,
up
'cause
until
it's
the
not fresh
end,
in my
because
mind.
his awareness is 100% there by the end.
Yeah.
You know, you definitely see for example, Todd Phillips leaves this little thing where he can control his laugh when he realizes that his laugh and his life was a lie. It's the first time that he's in control of his life. So he's in control of his awareness. So he's also in control of his laugh. So he doesn't laugh out of character or in awkward moments. And there's a ton of awkward moments after he finds out the truth about his life.
Yeah.
But he has total control of his laugh. So he gains his awareness.
Yeah.
So at the end, when he's reveling in it, he's totally aware at that point. And I think everything that you said is exactly why the movie is going to hold up for a long time. Not just that, not just will the story itself hold up for a long time, but Joaquin Phoenix was unbelievable. You cannot, I would be hard pressed to believe that anybody can act better than what he was able to do in that film.
No, it was 100%.
Coupling those things together is why this is going to be a movie that our kids know. It might not be the Joker our kids know, because as we know, the Joker that we know has changed 3-4 times. The Joker our parents know has changed 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
You know, because our
Christ, Joker.
our parents know the Joker from the series, the TV show.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so that's exactly
The Adam West era Joker.
Exactly. You know, and then
What's Cesar Romero? That's the guy
Yes.
who plays
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But-
I thought Vincent Price was one too.
could
There's, like, so
could
many-
be.
There's so many Jokers. I'm sorry.
So, but then eventually they know the Tim Burton Jack Nicholson Joker, which that world is a little bit closer to the world in this movie. So our children will know a different Joker. But this, trust me, we're talking way down the line, because to let a young mind watch this movie, they have to definitely be a certain age. That's for sure.
100%.
But the point I'm trying to make is that they will know this iteration of the Joker.
Yeah.
They will know this Joker. Not just that, somebody like Joaquin Phoenix will be, like, I feel like he's going to be a much more mainstream name. Just like we saw a shift in Daniel Day-Lewis from being a well-known actor in the world of cinema to a well-known actor in the world. He was considered the greatest actor by people in Hollywood. And then you see a shift in the 2000s where he's considered the world's greatest actor by the world. We're seeing this shift with directors. For example, Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is finally getting the recognition and limelight that he's always deserved. Phenomenal job on the reboot, by the way. Todd Phillips, Taika Waititi. These are guys who are indie. These are guys who are creating their own movies in their own light, different from what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And they're doing such a good job that they are now shaping the future of what media is looking like. They're the directors called upon. They're the actors called upon. And I think that that's why this movie is going to hold up. Is it different than everything else that came out? Yes. But it does allow a little bit more to that, or lean into a little bit more of that indie feel, a little bit more of that my image, my way of doing things, while still giving doing a fantastic job bringing in those old aspects from Martin Scorsese, who's one of the greatest writer directors ever, also bringing in those older elements from like cinematic masterpieces and kind of combining it into this own unique thing.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, you think that the impact is going to be long. Okay. And I somewhat agree. Were you done making your point with the synopsis?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't want people to, again, like, I don't want people to think, like, oh, this is about a guy who just kills people, because it's not true. Like,
Right,
it's going to
okay.
incite, violence in people. It's not
Yeah,
true.
and
Well,
Ant just made that point with his
A
explanation.
a perfect connection we can make. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is not about Charles Manson whatsoever, and that when you shed that, I want to see Charles Manson and I want to see the Manson murders. When you get rid of that, you can truly appreciate Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's the same thing. It's not about a guy who's just going to kill people in this one. It's not in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood either.
I think the only thing that insinuated that movie was going to be about that was the trailers. It doesn't talk about that in the title or anything else, It just says it's going to be a Hollywood
you see
story.
Manson, you see Sharon Tate, you're like, oh, God. I remember watching the movie, I was just like, on the edge of my seat, like, when's it going to happen?
When's it going to happen?
Yeah.
So here's what I think. I think that for sure there's going to be another Joker movie, but it's not going to be in the continuum of this.
Right.
I'm saying probably like 20 years from now. I'm just looking up the title because I know whatever they're going to make the next Joker movie, I don't know what they're going to call it. This one's called Joker. It's not called The Joker, so there might be a movie called The Joker. I think they're probably going to do one called Clown Prince or some other name that they use in the comics. But I just know for
Jared Leto,
Yeah.
Jared Leto,
the Clown Prince of Crime.
Jared Leto was really pushing for him to do what Joaquin Phoenix did in the world of superheroes. He really wanted it, and if you've seen any interviews with him lately, he's extremely unhappy that he didn't get the opportunity to, but Joaquin Phoenix did. But his Joker would not have been this at all. It would have been legitimately that would have been a perfect name for his. The Clown Prince of Crime. That would have been a perfect name for his Joker. But it wouldn't have had a lasting effect like this did.
But his Joker's a lot more glamorized. It's like very modern, very trendy. It's like
today,
from a guy who's very modern and trendy, but a phenomenal actor in his own right.
Today in Hollywood, though, do you realize that the trend with naming movies, you can't make it long at all? It has to be like one word or two words.
It's our favorite type of titles.
Yeah, we like to come up with titles like that because we think
Black Coffee. And you know what I'm saying? Like you
Simple.
can't make a long, like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like there's no more of that now. You know? This one would just be called like Jones. Like that's it. And that's it's the new Indiana Jones movie. So
I would not be surprised if that's the name of the new Indiana Jones movie. There is one coming out. So
seriously,
there's a new one coming out
with Ford Harrison.
Yes.
What's the premise?
It's gonna be. He'll probably be killed by his long lost son that he abandoned.
Oh, they're pulling a Rambo. They're just gonna have him just.
Or they're pulling an episode 7.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
Remember when the Joker movie came out? Well, not even came out, but like the
no,
leaks
it's.
of it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Nick was still thinking
I could tell you.
Jones.
No, I could tell you the. I forgot. I actually know. What's his name? Chris.
Pratt.
Chris Pratt is.
That's fitting.
Is now in
I can
the
see
Indiana
that.
Jones, and Harrison Ford is. I don't know if it's confirmed or if it was rumored. Thought it was confirmed that he is in it, but Chris Pratt is retaking. He's taking over.
What Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be before.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
Crazy. Yeah.
But Chris Pratt's taking over, and he took over Jurassic Park, and it worked. It worked well. People it revitalized the series, and they're revitalizing the series with Chris Pratt in that regard as well. So that is coming. Probably Jones.
That's
probably
huge.
just Jones.
Jones.
Clown Prince of Crime.
Directed by.
Dude, that is hilarious. I think the Clown Prince of Crime is the funniest.
They say that a lot in the cartoons too. So, but yeah, man.
But wait, what I was saying was just I remember just on the strength of Joaquin alone. I remember when we heard that this movie was coming out. This is what, like 2 years ago at this point. We're like, holy crap! Like Joaquin Phoenix playing the Joker, just like it's gonna be amazing.
I have the picture on my phone.
My gosh.
The idea was crazy. I just thought it was crazy how that character is so popular. He has his own movie. Like that's when I was like, wow, man. That's how you know.
I'm happy they did it.
Dude, you said it best. He's the greatest villain of all time.
Yeah.
Right. They're not gonna make a Lex Luthor movie. Like Lex Luthor the movie. Like if people are lining up like, oh, who's gonna play Lex Luthor?
Jesse Eisenberg. Duh. It's going to be Jesse Eisenberg.
I think
he was Lex Luthor. Yeah.
A Riddler movie would be hilarious.
Paul Dano is officially inked as the Riddler.
That's awesome.
Riddle me this. I think.
And he was a little Swiss Army man.
There's some cool ways to do the Riddler. If you watch the Batman series, like from 2003, the animated series that was on WB, it has a really cool dark version of the Joker. Has a really cool dark version of the Riddler. That's awesome. Then I'm like, wow, they should do a live.
So Jim Carrey more now rather than Jim Carrey then?
No, Jim Carrey, he brings too much energy to the role. The one that's in the Batman is a very subdued, like, what question can you never answer yes to, Batman? Are you asleep? Like, he's just like crazy dark, like sinister, more of a gremlin-esque holding a question mark staff kind of hunched over guy. I think that's a cool look for the Riddler. Not somebody who has like a top hat and is charismatic and twirls around. So I think that if they lean into the dark angle, audiences today will be able to get into it, which of course they will. Batman is just now just 100% dark. Everything has to be dark. So yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because that's really his aesthetic, right?
Right, but the Detective Comics wasn't really like the original idea for Batman wasn't really like that. It was more like, he's a guy who just solves crimes. It's not always dark. And
when did the shift happen?
So what happened was the Detective Comics was compare it more to Spider-Man, where it's just like, oh, this is like an action series about a guy who solves crime and it's a superhero thing. And then in the 60s, they were kind of like, let's make this really happy and campy. And then you have the Adam West era, where it's all like jokes and gags and pratfalls, and people love that, and there's still a lot of people that love that today. And that's where you see Robin come in, and then it's just like, oh, Batman's like this mentor to a young kid. It's very family friendly. I don't think it was until maybe like the 80s.
So
90s,
Tim Burton.
Yeah, we started leaning into like the dark angle of it, and that's where people were like, whoa, this idea works best in the dark.
Yeah.
And so it's debatable. Some people still like that light stuff, and they
Campy
kept it.
version.
Yeah, they kept it for there's a Cartoon Network show where they keep it exactly like the Adam West style Batman.
Really?
Yeah, what is it called? Let me find out what that is.
The new Robert Pattinson, his Batman should have like the drawn on eyebrows like the Adam West Batman.
Oh man, I'm trying to
see
figure out what
now
it's called.
they are gonna now the world that they're going to craft. Sure, it's going to be really dark. And I think Robert Pattinson's going to take that. He's a young Batman. He's not going to take the Christian Bale. He's not the Dark Knight trilogy was dark, but I really see it being a little bit darker than Christian Bale's version. Christian Bale's version in Batman Begins was not necessarily so dark. It was
it was very modern. Like, I
exactly.
Yeah.
I see. I if I was going to foresee it, I honestly think that the direction that they're going to go with the Batman is going to shy away from the more modern version because that's what it's called, the Batman. The more modern version that we even see with Ben Affleck's Batman.
Yeah.
They're going to really lean into that dark version, and Paul Dano lean into that dark version of these characters that actually would fit in a universe with this new Joker movie in some capacities.
Yeah.
That's the I feel like that would be a smart direction to go in.
I'm excited to see the new Robert Pattinson to be Batman, because my buddy Kevin is a super big film guy, and he's like, mark my words, he's like, this guy's going down as like one of the greats of all time.
I just need to know what he's going to do to the voice. That's it. Everyone's got their own little Batman
Christian
voice.
Bale's voice is not great.
It hasn't aged well. And it hasn't aged well because people have clowned on it so hard.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, because it is a bit silly, right?
Yeah.
But
he's a fantastic Bruce Wayne. I think he does a great job as Bruce Wayne.
I mean, I think he does a great job overall. It's just that voice has become laughable. And it's a shame because The Dark Knight is one of the best movies ever. Not just like best superhero movies. It's one of the best movies ever.
I put it could be my favorite movie of all time, taking the spot of some great movies. Like over time, it's been my most watched movie by far.
Why do you want to kill me?
The Batman, the Brave and the Bold. So that's a cartoon.
Beautiful.
So that's a Cartoon Network show where they keep it just Adam West,
That's
where it's
cool.
very, very light. But
Interesting.
What really put the darkness up though, on the dark meter for Batman was the Batman animated series, the one that came out in the 90s, where that was a very different take.
Well, look, we have a whole generation of people who grew up watching that, including, think of like teens, early 20s that it was marketed to then, including us who were younger then. So there are generations of people who love that, and that's why, kind of where Mark Hamill has that, he's so well connected to the Joker, because people loved it and so many people watched it. When I think Batman, I think that because that's what I remember in my childhood is that iteration.
Well, since we're still talking about the future real quick, and we're going to wrap up because it's 7:17, what I think is going to happen in the future for this series is there's going to be a Batman Beyond. So there's going to be a Batman Beyond live action.
I would love to see that.
It's just too popular, man. Like, people
Love to
that
see that.
series. And then that's going to be a one shot because I guarantee it's not going to do well. And then, and then they're going to return to just like switching people out to play the regular.
Well, we do have
Batman.
Batgirl now, Batwoman on Fox with Ruby Rose.
Great.
Batwoman.
Everyone was asking for that.
Isn't there a Robin movie? Am I wrong in saying that? Wasn't
No,
that, like, hinted or something?
It was hinted at with Joseph Gordon-Levitt at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. But here's the thing too. They decided to fire one of the greatest writer-directors in Hollywood right now and go in a completely different direction with DC. And when they did that, they killed any potential futures for the worlds that were being created within the Dark Knight trilogy.
The Batman.
But they do have
It's over.
they currently have oh my gosh. They currently have Titans. And Titans, I really recommend it. It's a really
Isn't that an
really
adult
good
version
show.
of Teen Titans?
Yeah, and
it's
I
good.
didn't think it was going to be that good, but I really enjoyed it. I would recommend checking it out for sure.
No, when I say adult, like it's more mature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what I think the Joker lends, not to talk necessarily about DC, but to stick to the world of film, the Joker is kind of the Joker is the epitome of what the direction that Hollywood is going in. We have moved, like A24 is a very indie style film studio with two movies that are really getting some high praise, including, I can't remember the name right now, but the movie about the Chinese family and telling the grandmom whether or not she has cancer. As well as The Lighthouse with William Dafoe and William Patterson coming out. But we also see that when we look at Jay and Silent Bob reboot and the immediate success that's coming from that. We see it in, now Quentin Tarantino is not just making different movies. People are making unique movies like Quentin Tarantino. So we're seeing a shift in Hollywood, in that he is a bit more mainstream than ever before, in that everybody else is also creating these very unique movies. And there's so many movies that have come out this year, and we're living in this fantastic year for movies. It's lending really well to a wide array of new material. Sure, the superhero thing has been beaten into submission over and over and over the last 10, 15 years. But we're also seeing a lot of different movies happening that, 10 years ago probably wouldn't be existing. We're seeing a lot less Mission Impossibles, and we're seeing a lot more focus on character development, creativity, artistry, in The Lighthouse being black and white. A lot more focus on that.
Yeah, well, you got to think about this, like, about Hollywood. It's the same thing you could say about music. People would be like, oh, mainstream music sucks. Well, why don't you listen to music that's not mainstream? Why don't you watch movies that are indie? Why don't you watch foreign films? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much great stuff and creative things that are being made. It just sucks that everyone, like, has, like, the one idea of Hollywood. And I understand why.
Well, that's a very consumer attitude, because you have to go out of
very subjective, too.
Of course. So
Yeah.
you have to go out of your way to view the things that you just mentioned. And
Right,
people
yeah.
don't want to do that. Like, you have to peruse. You have to go on Reddit or go on IMDb and just, like, look up stuff that you think would be interesting. But people are like, if it's not on TV and it's not at the theaters and it's not good, like, what's the point? You have to get on the street, man. Read some articles, dude. Go on YouTube, watch some YouTube
It
videos,
just
like,
sucks.
talk
Like,
to
people
people.
are like, oh, modern music sucks. Well, that's not true, because there's people that are making music today that's modern, but you're not going to see it on the mainstream. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's a very dumb thing for people to say.
Oh, of course. A great art exists all the time.
Exactly,
Like, it's just a matter
yeah.
of finding it.
Exactly.
And I think that's a nice place to leave off. So, any closing thoughts or anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? No? All right.
Ant?
Kill the Batman.
Go watch Ant's YouTube video. It's called, it's getting a lot of hits right now. It's super popular, trending. It's called, my Joker impression.
Oh, that's right,
2019. Go watch that. That sums up everything.
I'm starting to get into impressions, so yeah, go check it out.
So please support it and leave your comments. Yeah, on Son Anthony YouTube channel.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, YouTube Son Anthony, it'll be there. This has been episode. What's up?
One more thing I was gonna quickly say. If I'm really looking into the future a little bit, the next time we'll be really sitting here talking about the most popular movie out. Probably going to be a little bit after Christmas, a little bit before New Year's,
What movie?
with episode 9 coming out. There is if we're talking.
Did you see the series they just announced for Disney Plus?
Which one?
The new Star Wars series.
Yeah.
Either which one though? There's 2 that are coming
I don't
out.
know. It looks like a character that looks kind of like Django.
Yeah.
Fett.
The Mandalorian. It looks really cool. They've really penned some really good people to get involved with it, including
It's a wrap.
Oh my gosh.
It's a wrap, by the way. Disney Plus is going to win. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah.
Disney
No,
Plus is going to win, and in
I
30
totally
years,
agree.
Netflix won't be around. Netflix is going to be blockbuster. It's not because I don't like Netflix. It's not because I don't like Netflix. Disney Plus is going to crush them.
Jon Favreau is doing The Mandalorian.
Oh, really?
So
that's awesome.
Jon Favreau has been killing it in the world of Disney.
I just saw a commercial for it, and I was like,
But
this is amazing.
They also, did you hear what they also announced? The other series that's coming out?
Didn't they do one with like continuation of, or it has like the guy who played Obi-Wan, right? Am I correct in saying
Is this
that?
a dark version of Puff the Magic Dragon?
I wish. No, but they're creating an Obi-Wan series between episode 3 and episode 4, and they got Ewan McGregor to play the part of Obi-Wan, which is going. These 2 things alone, listen, it's headed in the right direction. I'm just very curious to see how the entire 9 movies come full circle in this last film, and it's going to be long, and it better be long. It has to be.
Star Wars is a religion, dude. There's too much to watch, man.
I wish I got into it.
Star Wars is becoming the
There's
new
always
One
time.
Piece. There's too much.
There is always time to get into it.
I tried, man. I watched all of the movies, and I think it's really cool, but it doesn't go far.
I'm gonna say this. It's the same thing with Kingdom Hearts. Part of it is nostalgia. Because
Sure.
I look at Star Wars now with like a more keen eye as an adult, and like when I watch episode 2, I'm like, this is kind of bad. But then when I was a kid, I was like, this is the best thing ever. So now like it's
like
the
episode
continuation
1.
of that.
Oof.
Like the purists are just like, oh, it's episode 7 is not better than episode 4, New Hope, whatever it is. And dude, I can't watch those Star Wars movies without laughing.
That's what I mean.
Honestly, yeah, like
That's what I mean.
I
yeah.
can't take them seriously.
But in my opinion, you're supposed to. You're supposed to watch them and
it's
laugh.
like they're kids movies, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of adult. I'm saying that. But George Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong. I've been saying that a lot. He isn't like for kids, right? Isn't it targeted for kids? Even Dragon Ball, like Toriyama's like, oh, I'm doing something that the kids would like, that the kids like.
Right.
Originally.
Yeah, always originally.
But
yeah.
you see a shift between episode 4 and episode 5, just like you see a shift in the animated series.
Yeah.
No, I mean the Star Wars animated series, the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
You see a major shift
You watched
after
that, by the way?
Unfortunately I got stuck in the whole of season 1, which is very, very kiddish. And I'm going to pick it up with season 2. And I was recommended that a little late in the game. I didn't watch it while it was coming out. Yes, it is. George Lucas
I'm a cartoon
created it.
guy, and I'm not recommending it just because animated. Great series. If you really, really love Star Wars, like, and you want to get into the lore, which is not me, but that's a really, really great series.
Yeah. So I look forward to doing a complete 180 the next time we're sitting here, because we're gonna go from talking about the Joker to Star Wars, and I'm going to guarantee there is not one thing that's alike between those 2 movies.
Real quick before we wrap up, because now we're on a whole nother topic. I just want to say this. I want everyone to call it, because I would like to have you on after that movie comes out. Episode 9 is going to flop. It's going to be a huge upset. I'm telling you right now, because of what happened in episode 8. I know what they did with this movie is that they're probably looking at everyone's reaction to 8 and seeing how they can market the movie better, so that there'll be a more positive reception. But it's too late. I'm telling you right now, that movie's going to go in a really bad direction.
All right, you heard it here first. I can't speak on it. I know that I'm gonna go see it and just enjoy it anyway.
I'm trying to be positive, but there's no way. Dude.
Perfect, because we could play this back. I'll take the complete opposite perspective as you, and I'll say that it's going to go down as, this might be lenient, but like it's going to go down as a top 5 Star Wars movie, maybe even a top 3 Star Wars movie.
You can't appease Star Wars fans that much.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm not
blinded
saying
by nostalgia.
I get that.
This movie's gonna upset
I get that.
everyone.
I get that, but I'm saying that I can't say for the diehards that bleed George Lucas's blood, but I can definitely.
That's intense.
Blood of Lucas.
but I will go as far as to say that I will take the exact
That was so
opposite
funny.
perspective as you.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the new Star Wars is going to be bad and thinks it's going to be awesome. So until then, we'll find out next time on Andrewcast. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.